What is going on YouTube? The time has come and so have I for the Uncharted 3 Platinum Trophy. We already have the Platinum for both the first and the second game, but it is time to complete the Drake collection in this video. This amazing over-the-top action series follows a similar trophy list to the other two games, so we know that there will be plenty of suffering. Uncharted 3 has a total of 50 trophies to achieve the Platinum and comes with an estimated time of 15 hours to complete. Just like the other games, we have 12 trophies from a part replay done in 2016. As they are mostly miscellaneous ones, it doesn't really make a difference, honestly. We of course had to complete the game on crushing difficulty, which is why PSN Profiles gives it a 5 out of 10. Much like the first two games, the hardest difficulty was no joke, and we got sent back to the main menu hundreds of times. Like on the other two games, we are going to keep it to one playthrough by playing on crushing difficulty and getting all of the collectibles at the same time. We can still clean up through chapter select, but we don't get as much freedom with this one, which makes the cleanup a tad bit longer than the others. As always, please do leave a like if you enjoy the video, as it greatly supports the channel. Comment below if you have any games that you want to see videos on, and of course subscribe if you want to follow our journey to 100 Platinum trophies. Now, let's crack on with the trilogy's finale and jump right back in to Drake's third adventure.
I love you, babe.
We start the game all suited and booted with Sully as we arrive at this place with the intentions of robbing this man. It of course goes horribly wrong, and we are now thrown into a massive bar fight where we get to see the updated fighting system. This did take a while to understand, as crushing difficulty gives no prompts, but here we are. The fight ends with us showing this massive dude how to use the toilet, and we try escaping out the back door. Sadly, it turns out that the bad guys were expecting this, and we are introduced to the villains of the game in some back alley. Her name is Kat Marlowe, and there is some history between her and Sully. This meeting gets cut short by Jason Statham as he proceeds to end game both Nate and Sully.
See, now that's some bullshit.
We then have a flashback to Nate's childhood, and it turns out that he was a bit of a menace back then too. There was a lot of backstory details that we could go over here, but in a nutshell, it was about the first time that we met Sully. We were basically trying to get our hands on Drake's ring at the time, and this was locked in a museum, so we of course decide to burgle the place. After some pretty sick parkour for a child, we then break into the museum and get cornered by Sully and the woman from the alleyway that we just met, surprisingly. We did however notice an opportunity to try and escape, so we then gremlin crawled under the table and give the great escape the old college girl try. This is a very fun and cool free-running sequence across the rooftops. However, after a while, we are unfortunately cornered as we run into a dead end. For whatever reason, Sully decides to save us, and it was here that Nate and Sully's relationship starts off. Some cutscenes and a long chat later, we go back to the present day, and it turns out that we were pulling one big prank on Marlowe.
Got him!
Jason Statham is actually on our team, and it was all staged to make her think that we were dead and take a fake ring instead of Nate's official one. After this brain blast, we then decided to meet up with the dime piece Chloe from the last game and make our way towards Marlowe's group and what they were looking for. This of course involved going into an old underground structure for a bit of parkour and puzzle solving, which we flew through because our brain is so big.
Stop the cap!
While in here though, we were able to get our first trophy for finding the game's only Easter egg collectible. We also got to experience a bit of the stealth mechanics, and then finally managed to make our way into the main room everyone's looking for. Inside here are obviously a lot of relics and clues for different treasures, but the best part, it is here that Marlowe realises that the ring is fake and that we pranked her good. In her anger, she storms off with some of the boys to track us down, and we use this opportunity to spend 15 minutes solving a very simple puzzle to get clues that she was also after. As you can tell, everything now proceeds to fall apart after some renovations as we alerted everyone to our position, but we did manage to get a map in the process. So we now have to shoot our way out in our first proper gunfight of Uncharted 3. This wasn't actually too bad, and we were able to escape on our first attempt. In the end, we escape out of the sewer ruins and have no choice but to jump into Chloe's kidnapping van and escape. Once we made it to safety, the team look over the map for the next clues, and everything points towards a place called the Atlantis of the Sands. In the next sequence, we are taken to a forest, which of course is a must in an Uncharted game. While here, we have to do some parkour and puzzles, where yet again, we got stuck longer than your stepsister. Anyway, eventually we make it to this old ruined mansion which has been overrun with guards. It was here that we hit our first wall of the game, being sent back to the lobby for the next 20 minutes. One good thing, however, we were able to get a trophy for getting 30 grenade kills while here, and another trophy for getting a certain amount of kills while blind firing. Eventually, we make it out to the next area, which is yet another combat section. I did not struggle here anywhere near as much though, as we managed to pass it on our second try. We then spend some time making our way through the mansion into some catacombs where we find a tomb. In this tomb, we find more clues in the form of an artifact and also get ambushed by the men in black. Next, however, we were kind of saved by this horde of spiders which proceeded to eat this dude alive. I kind of say saved as they did eat us a few times as well until we finally managed to escape. During our escape, the enemies decided it's time to burn the place to the ground with everyone still inside. This of course led to some very fun parkour and action sequences which we definitely did not struggle with. While escaping, we do manage to net ourselves a trophy for getting 30 kills with the micro SMG. No small penis joke this time. Nate and Sully basically now have to escape this burning and collapsing building by climbing around what is left, which of course came with some resets due to some of the leftover guards also trapped around the building. For some reason, we end up on the roof and then have a very close call while running away. But luckily, we do manage to survive and make it to safety, where Sully reminds Nate that his name is not Ezio and it is a miracle that he even made it out of there. We then fast forward a bit to this Syrian castle, which we decide to break into following the clues we got from the burning building. The whole gang is here as well, as we all sneak around the compound together. I use the term sneak loosely as it did not take long for us to turn every encounter into a gunfight. We did, however, manage to get another trophy for getting 50 stealth kills. Like I said, we turned most areas into a gunfight and we hit a major wall shortly into the break-in. At one point, we have to climb out and around the side of the castle. We are also shot at by guards on the top of the castle while trying to do this. I was reset 26 times here alone, just getting railed on the outside wall. Title of your mum's sex tape. What made it even worse was as soon as we thought we made it to the top, this big bald dude proceeds to headbutt us into next week, resetting our progress. In the end, Drake and the gang do make it to the top of the tower, where Nate uses his big brain knowledge to break the code and pinpoint where we need to go. This obviously is cut short due to all the attention we brought to ourselves with an RPG squad that just decides to shoot their load all over the castle wall, and we experience this very cool chase sequence. It of course went perfectly and we eventually managed to escape their line of sight, but broke away from others in the process. Nate and Charlie decide to head to the tower that we pointed out before we were rudely interrupted, and there wasn't really much to say here honestly. That was until we were ambushed by a small army and we were very underprepared. Now, we brushed over the fight getting here, as aside from the tower, it wasn't too bad. This fight, however, was awful. It took us a long time until we were finally able to get through here, and many resets. We were rewarded after completing it though by finding our 40th collectible, which rewards us with a trophy. A little while later, while doing a puzzle, Charlie gets a talking to by one of the Men in Black leaders. In a nutshell, he basically messed with his mind and reset him back to the factory default settings. Then the dude pulls a Houdini and disappears while Charlie kind of freaks out, and for some reason, like good friends, we don't really pay much attention to it. This does come back to bite us though, as once we solve the puzzle and progressed a bit into the catacombs, Charlie decides it is time to challenge us for the Lord of the Locker Room title.
Are you challenging me?
What are you doing?
Not gonna lie, he beat our ass so many times here, I wish I paid attention to the tutorial message about fisting at the beginning. After enough penetration, the game decided to help us out and let Sully and Chloe stop us from being choked out. Again. We then proceed to carry on like normal, as if nothing happened, free running around these tombs and solving puzzles focused around this globe, which all lead us to robbing yet another tomb for another half of the amulet that we recovered from the burning building. It's not all smooth sailing though, as the guys in suits were all waiting for us to come out of the tomb with the artifact, exactly like it has happened many times before. However, this time he shows us how good his mind control is and orders Charlie to turn on us. After getting rid of our weapons, Charlie does manage to break free of the mind control and start shooting at the Men in Black. That whole sequence was a bit of a brain blast honestly, no pun intended, and I have no clue why or what happened. However, what was not fun was this chase sequence. It was another section of the game which relied entirely on RNG, and you just have to keep going and hope that you are allowed to make it. There's been a few of these throughout the series, and to be honest, they just make me mad. In the end though, the chase ended with everyone but Charlie jumping to safety because Nate's dump truck broke the scaffolding. We then watch as Marlowe tries to burn him alive, and he just yeets himself off the edge of this tower. Surprisingly, he did not die from it and only majorly messed up his leg. It was at this point that I got a bit of PTSD from the second game's escape sequence with Elena's boyfriend. Luckily though, we are not the ones carrying him and are free of that burden. What we were not free of though was the endless suffering that was this section right here. Basically, on the final stretch of the castle, there are a lot of enemies that swarm the gates and its entrance. Apart from being sent back to the main menu for 30 minutes straight, this part was fun. I just love armoured enemies paired with tons of grenades and aimbot. It is my favourite gaming experience. I was honestly reset here more times than I even counted, and it was safe to say that I was getting a tad mad.
But wait, there's more.
As after that virtual BDSM, we make it out of the gated area and onto the exit walkway, which is genuinely not far off the same amount of pain we just experienced. To put it into perspective, the last two firefights of this chapter have taken me longer than the previous two whole chapters themselves. It was hands down one of the closest I have been to rage quitting out of the whole series. Anyway, sometime later we do manage to fight our way through and steal this battle bus to make our not so great escape. For whatever reason, we decide to reach out to Elena from the other games. Turns out that we've broken up again, but she is willing to help us get into Yemen. While in Yemen, there is quite a lot that happened, but we are going to bullet point it here. We did some nifty parkour in and around the city. We got in a public fisting session and then slapped this dude with a fish. Nate did do a bit of tomb raiding and we was forced to solve 5 puzzles back to back, which were of course easy because we are so big brain.
I have potato blood in my veins.
Eventually, we found more clues in the typical Uncharted fashion and were ambushed shortly after. We then got injected with a rare strain of gonorrhea, and we then shortly after tripped balls while running through the alleys of Yemen. Eventually, we chased the leader of the Men in Black for a bit while coming down from this unsolicited drug session. This results in a fight, and despite one reset from being drowned in this fountain, we were able to complete the sequence, which rewards us with a wooden plank to the face and being kidnapped by Little Nas X and his band of Somalian pirates. Nate of course does manage to fight his way out, and this honestly was a very cool action sequence. Shortly after breaking free, we were able to locate our 60th collectible for a trophy. What I was not expecting though was just how many combat sections were coming up in open areas, and of course this meant that we struggled here for a long time. I want to say that this chapter was by far the hardest of the whole series in my opinion. Not only would we continuously die over and over again, the checkpoints were not that forgiving here, and every time we think we made it past the worst of it, it just got worse. I am only going to cover the main firefights that kept me on this chapter for a whole hour. The first big one has been playing while I've been ranting along. Then immediately after this first area was this close quarters section that literally gave you 1 second on respawning to react. Because of this, the small section here reset me many times in a very short space of time. At this point, it was safe to say that we were getting slightly tilted. Now let's jump into the cherry on top, which happened to be while parkouring round the side of this massive destroyed boat. It was yet again another shootout while hanging off the side of something. I'm going to say this now, this is one addition to the games that I really did not enjoy, and it was entirely because of the crushing difficulty. This one was just as bad as the section at the castle, and we put Nate in a body bag over and over again for about 10 minutes. Somehow, after literal cock and ball torture, we were finally able to escape the pirates by jumping aboard some working boats in this fleet. There's not really much to say about this section, as just like before, it was a lot more combat. This fleet is filled with hundreds of guards, and we of course have to fight our way through all of them. Just like the last chapter, there were only a couple of parts here that gave us some struggles. It was mostly though the gunfight that is held in this fancy room. The main issue that I had was that we got checkpointed and pinned down in this corner with very limited ammo. This section alone was the worst part of the chapter, but after some perseverance we did manage to get through. Things then take a very sudden turn, as for some reason the entire boat has taken damage and proceeds to start sinking. Now everyone on the boat is basically just fighting for themselves, and we are going through them. Towards the end of the chapter, we do a bit of renovating and then also bump into Little Nas X in this glass room. He has been injured in the chaos of the chapter and decides to give us a parting gift of a not so graceful death. In the next time, we do manage to escape the flooding and yeet ourselves off the side of the boat. Somehow we were washed ashore and you would never guess where we ended up. That is right, on Elena's front door, and at this point I don't even know how. Nate has to rest up in the next mission as we are going to break into an airfield and stow away on a plane. Not the most legal thing, but Nate has done a lot worse, like war crime level worse. In this mission we find our 80th collectible and that nets us another trophy. Generally there is not much to say about this chapter apart from this section right here where Nate got railed consistently after spawning for about 5 minutes straight. However, after escaping the guards, Elena then decides to come in clutch and help us catch the plane that is taking off. We of course do not stick around as Elena is an awful driver and is known for crashing every vehicle she drives, so we jump onto the landing gear and stow away on this plane. This chapter here is probably the most iconic one of the game as we're about to get into the big epic plane fight. It starts off with us being found by this big man and then getting thrown around the back of the plane like a ragdoll. He is dealt with a swift kick to the nuts and a few follow-up punches, and then after that we get dealt with by trying to drop us and the cargo out of the plane. Fortunately, we are parkour masters and are able to save ourselves by using some of the cargo still attached to the plane, and we then have to shoot our way back into the plane. Aside from being reset here a few times, we were able to get a trophy for killing 20 enemies with hipfire. Shortly after that, we then crashed the plane and just about survived by using a parachute on some of the cargo. The bad news, apart from the fact that we crashed the plane, it crashed in the middle of a desert and we now have to spend a lot of time scavenging and surviving.
Oh my god!
We do eventually make our way into this abandoned town and somehow manage to stumble into a small army. Fighting our way through this town was actually quite a lot of fun despite giving us a challenge here and there. In one of the firefights though, we were able to net a trophy for getting our 30th kill with the Mag 5 pistol. The dopamine is shortly lived though, as we now get railed for about 15 minutes in the next few firefights. This small army were not messing around as we got ambushed countless times and in the end we got cornered and assumed this was the end. Luckily though, some of the locals decided to ride in on horses and save the day. Not only did they kill everyone that was shooting at us, but they also gave us a lift and helped us out of the town. Sadly, our driver was sent back to the lobby a bit earlier than we intended, so we had to take over. It was here that we were able to get a trophy for getting our 30th M9 kill. We then stole this RPG and used it to clear our way and of course avenged our fallen Uber driver. A few cutscenes later, we decided to team up with the people who saved us. It turns out that the army we were fighting are their enemies too, and also, conveniently, the Men in Black's army. They are also transporting our good old friend Sully, so we all decide to group up and attack the convoy. This wasn't too bad honestly, and we made quick work through this Fast and Furious section until we get to the front of the vehicle. It was here that we would find Sully, but we also have to fight the Arabian Sam Sulek. Honestly, me and Sully nearly got our cheeks clapped here, and after a very close call we were able to escape and destroy the convoy. However, on the way back to camp with Sully, there was a pretty mad sandstorm and we unfortunately got separated from our new friends. This was good and bad. While navigating the sandstorm, we were able to somehow find the entrance to the City of Sands despite not being able to see a goddamn thing.
It was at this moment he knew.
Who the fuck is this nigga, bro?
This of course involved a very annoying firefight and then a super easy puzzle which we completed with ease. The puzzle we completed actually opened the gates to the city, and honestly it was a very cool city, and we now enter the final stretch of the game. Before we explore the city, Nate decides that we need to stop and have a quick drink. This fountain however has been spiked and we now proceed to trip balls for a while. First off, we got to see Sully get shot and now think that he is dead. We then retaliate and go into this firefight, which did at first give us a bit of trouble. In this firefight we were able to get our next trophy for getting 30 kills with the Tau pistol. We then have a flashback to us as a kid and relive the chapter that we done earlier. Nate then manages to break out of this flashback but is still tripping like crazy. We now fight our way through the City of Sands while drugged, and in this section has to be some of the worst fights of the game. There are a few gunfights that are pure pain, but this entire section is definitely up there. I don't know honestly what was more of a struggle, the pirate gunfights or the fights in this section. We were probably stuck for around the same time though, and we just continuously got railed over and over again. Something also worth mentioning, most of the time you were checkpointed in a way that gave you around 1 second before it was open season on Nate. I genuinely don't even know how to describe how bad this section was. I think I would prefer to go to a Taylor Swift concert than ever replay this part on Crushing. After a literal hour of dying over and over again, we were able to make it through, and then we break free of the drugs and wake up in this abandoned swimming pool. With no clue where we are, we decided to just wander around until we found the enemy army and then follow them for a bit. After a few shootouts and dying a few times, we wander into this building and stumble across Daddy Sully just vibing here. He explains that the water we drank essentially sent us on a mad one and we just ran off. Sully and Nate basically now decide to just start blasting and shoot their way all the way to Marlowe and the Men in Black. This was not as bad as anything we have experienced and only endgamed us a handful of times before we were able to make it to the final part of the game. It was here that we got to see Marlowe and the crew were after this cursed artifact that was hidden in the main water supply. Presumably what sent us on a bit of a mad one earlier. Nate and Sully of course decide that we can't let that happen and manage to sneak a little bit closer. We all know that stealth is not their strong suit and it very quickly escalates to a shootout. It is here that Sully is knocked out and kicked into the water, so we dive in and save him. So long as we don't ingest the water, we should be good. While under the water, we notice that Sully somehow has found a triple shot grenade pistol that he has never been seen with so far. But this is convenient as we then use it to resync the cursed artifact and also destroy enough of the buildings around them to give us time to escape. After dying immediately when leaving that cutscene, we now have to fight our way out. We of course managed to get another trophy here for getting our 30th kill with the T-Bolt sniper. It turns out that the structures we destroyed were somehow keeping most of the city up, as once it fully collapses, the rest of the city starts falling too. While running through our lives, we bump into Marlowe and the Men in Black leader again and enter this weird kind of standoff. Fortunately, this building then starts falling apart and most of us fall down below into a quick sand pit. This normally would be a big red flag, but we manage to land right next to solid ground and can pull ourselves out to safety. The suited and booted dude also does the same thing and we then stand there and watch Marlowe drown in quicksand. We then start the parkour sequence of escaping the city that we have now just destroyed. At this point it is kind of Drake's trademark honestly, and not the first ancient city that he has brought down. Anyway, this escape gets cut short as we then completely fail this section here, but mainly because once we do complete it, we enter the final boss of the game. This is basically a pretty fun fist fight and didn't actually give us any trouble at all really, now that we understand the fisting mechanics. Anyway, on our first try we gave him such a good fisting he asked to be on top for a bit. Sully got a little bit jealous though and decided to save us by shooting him in the shoulder, and since everything around us is falling down, all of us get knocked around for a bit and Sully dropped the gun as we were sent off the side of this platform. We then quickly climb up the side and manage to save Sully from his head being squashed with a rock with a well placed headshot. As his body drops off the side and into the dunes, we were rewarded with a string of difficulty based trophies. One for beating the game on easy, another for beating the game on medium, another for beating the game on hard, and finally the last one for beating the game on crushing. Now, with both bad guys killed, it is time to summarise the final series of cutscenes. We of course managed to escape, and our new friends on horseback come to pick us up and are happy that we found a way to destroy the city. Sully and Nate then head back into the airport and he tells us basically to stop dumping Elena. Then, right on cue, she rocks up to the airport and Nate and Elena sort it all out and get back together. Third time's a charm, I'm guessing. We then all walk off together and the credits start to roll. Now it is time to go back and clean up the remaining trophies. Let's start off with the couple of collectibles that I missed. So let's grab our 100th collectible for this trophy. Then we went and got the last collectible for the Master Thief Collection trophy. We're now going to go for some miscellaneous trophies and start off with getting our 30th SAS kill for this one. Overall, the cleanup isn't too bad, but it is harder than the previous two games as you don't get that many options when it comes to using certain weapons. Anyway, after some research, I did find out that you can restart checkpoints and this does not count as a death. So after resetting some combat sections a few times on this mission, we managed to get the Survivor trophy for killing 75 enemies in a row without dying. We then killed 30 enemies in a row with sidearms for this trophy. We then went to a different level and were able to get this trophy for killing 2 people with a thrown back grenade. Then, after restarting the checkpoint a few times, we were finally able to get 10 enemies total with grenades that were returned to sender. Now, we go back to the mission in the desert to grind out some more trophies. The first one was for killing 50 enemies in a row without letting the mag run empty and auto reloading. Then after that, we learned that we can parkour over shield enemies and got a trophy for doing it 5 times. In that same area, we also got 30 kills with the Dragon Sniper for this trophy. After enough restarts, we also managed to unlock 30 RPG kills for this trophy, shortly followed by killing 30 people with the Pak 80 LMG for another trophy. The next one took us to a different level and was extremely annoying. We had to kill people while floating in water, and for some reason I chose here to do it in the ocean. After a painful 10 minutes, we were finally able to kill 20 enemies for the trophy. Next up was to go for the leftover grenade based trophies, so all we did was progress this level until we were ambushed in the warehouse. First off, we went round the back of the truck and threw a grenade once everyone got out of the vehicle to get ourselves the Dynamite Master Trophy. This was honestly quite painful and did take a few attempts. Then we restart checkpoint and hang off to this crate at the back here. We can now get the Grenade Hangman Trophy by throwing grenades at the group once they get out of the car again. After a few times, we do manage to get the trophy. Next, we progress the level like normal, but this time we had to kill 10 enemies in a row by alternating between shooting and fisting for the Combat Leapfrog Trophy. Now for the last 2 miscellaneous trophies, which are nice and easy. The first one was to go back to the market fight sequence before we got drugged, but this time we need to kill 3 enemies with the fish. On our 3rd fish slap, we were able to net ourselves that he's going to need a sturgeon trophy. Then we follow up by entering photo mode and popping the last one that we needed. Now all that is left are the speedrun trophies. To be honest, they were not too bad, and after a couple of resets we were able to net ourselves all 3 of them. The first level was to escape the burning building in record time for this trophy. After, we had to do the sneak in and board the plane mission, which we managed to get first try. And then lastly, we had to solve the puzzles that opened the doors to the city in record time as well to unlock the final speedrun trophy. Then finally, the 3rd platinum trophy needed to have fully completed the Nathan Drake collection. What a journey that was. I genuinely don't think there is much else that I can say about these games at this point. Each of these 3 games are 100% worth playing casually or going for that platinum. They are all an absolute blast and all hold up to this day. It was amazing to replay the series and enjoy them just as much as I did when I first played them on the PlayStation 3. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more platinum trophy content, please do subscribe and leave a like. It does a lot for a channel like mine, and don't forget to comment below what games you want to see videos on. And I will catch you in the next one.
我很喜欢冰淇淋。